Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to condition your dog to the muzzle so that they love it like this. Muzzle. Break. Good. Go. Break. Sit. Good boy. Muzzle. Break. Welcome to Rodent Canine Academy, where I help dogs and owners reach their full potential. I'm your coach, Zechariah Matson, and I'm excited to spend time with you and talk to you about all things dogs. But before we get started with today's video, let me give you something that will help you dramatically improve the relationship that you have with your dog. That is my free 11-day dog relationship challenge. Each day, you are sent a new activity to do with your dog that is going to help propel the relationship between you and your dog forward. By the end of the challenge, you will have a total of 11 activities that you can do with your dog. Each of these activities is specifically designed to help build the relationship that you have with them. The link to that challenge is going to be up here on the screen, and I'm also going to post it down in the video description below. With that being said, let's get to training. When it comes to muzzle conditioning, I like to start by simply holding the muzzle out and then taking treats and placing them inside of the muzzle for the dog to eat out of, just as if it were a food bowl. By doing this, we are minimizing the amount of stress the dog has because we are allowing the dog to come to the muzzle rather than bringing the muzzle to the dog. This also helps us achieve our end desired result, which is the dog going willfully into the muzzle, rather than us having to put the muzzle on the dog. As you can see in this video, my dog is oftentimes sniffing around the muzzle in search of the food. This is perfectly okay and acceptable. We want the dog to ultimately find the food on their own with as little help from us as possible. They need to think that putting their face in the muzzle is their idea. Once you begin to notice that your dog is putting their face into the muzzle, even if you didn't put food in the muzzle, then you can go on into the next step of muzzle conditioning. In this next step, rather than putting food into the muzzle and waiting for the dog to put their face into the muzzle in search of the food, you wait for the dog to put their face into the muzzle first, and then present the food to the dog through the muzzle. This way, the food appears after the dog has put their face into the muzzle. Once the dog consistently puts their face into the muzzle without there being a treat in there, and you continue to reward them, then you can go on to the third step, which is rewarding the dog outside of the muzzle. I like to use the marker word of chip to let the dog know that they are going to be rewarded with a treat. This also lets the dog know that at this point, the task has been accomplished and they can now take their face out of the muzzle in order to get the reward. Just like the previous stages, once the dog consistently places their face into the muzzle, we can move forward. The last and final stage in muzzle conditioning is to lengthen the amount of time that the dog is putting their face into the muzzle. We want to do this process very slowly, as if we ask the dog for too much time in the beginning, they can lose motivation. The key is to ask for just a little bit longer from the dog each time they put their face in the muzzle. This could be a fraction of a second longer than the previous time. This eventually gets built up to the point where the dog can stick their face into the muzzle for an extended period of time. And then if you were to move the muzzle, the dog would then follow you
Chip.
and the muzzle while continuing to keep their face in the muzzle.
Chip.
At this point in the conditioning process, you would be able to then strap the muzzle on completely and get the dog used to wearing it around the house, on walks, or in the yard. Even if you've previously muzzle conditioned your dog, it's very important to continue to do this type of exercise. That way, the dog always associates the muzzle with something good and pleasant happening. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more great content like this in the future, make sure to just go ahead and subscribe to the channel.